Okay, hi everybody. My name's Darren from Badass Drones. I bring you a new product from ourselves today. This is the Badass Drones and Whoov collaboration to make a Tiny Whoov, which for those of you which are not too familiar with that, this is essentially a tiny whoop, a small drone, form factor that has been kind of pushed into a hovercraft. So a lot of people have been making these with chopped up tiny whoops and cheaper equivalents. But what we kind of found with those is that they don't have dedicated hover motors. So these will only activate when you're going forwards. So it doesn't really give you a full kind of hovercraft experience. We want to be drifting around corners in a hovercraft kind of fashion. So to accomplish that, what we've essentially done is we've taken our own flight controller. And we've written some custom firmware for this that allows us to change the amount of lift that we push through the two lift motors to give you a bit more of a dynamic experience. So we'll do some other videos showing you the actual item itself, but today what I want to do is to guide you through the build. It's a pretty simple build. I mean, just to run you through the already pre-built product, you'll kind of see here it's basically 3 layers of foam which have pre-applied 3M tape. Then you have these kind of plastic ducts with another top piece. And these ducts are basically just part of a standard tiny drone frame, which we just snip off with a pair of snips. Here's some I made earlier. So we'll be using these to cut those up. And then they get glued into place with hot glue, foam glue, whatever glue you fancy really. I mean, you could use super glue, but it's slightly more permanent. So that's up to you. And then you glue your flight controller in place. And, you know, a few blobs of glue here and there just to keep the wires in place. And you're pretty much good. Just got to be sure that you run the power cable out the right hole. That's the important part. So then we have the battery mounted on top. And away you go. So just to quickly show you the controller as well. The controller setup is very, very straightforward. If I plug this one in just to demonstrate. You basically turn the controller on using the main on-off button. It will stop flashing. The top left shoulder button is then your on and off button, which is this. You can then hold that button to increase the amount of lift as well, like this. So if I turn it on first and then increase the lift. And there's 6 levels of that, so holding down for 3 seconds will change through those steps and it will go back to the main level. If you unplug the battery and plug the battery back in, that will reset back to level 1 again as well. So you can set that up each time for whatever surface you're moving on at the time. To actually go forward, this is your forwards. This is not backwards, this is down, off. This is to go forwards. You do then have steering on the right, so that's your left and right steering. And for the more advanced people, you can push the stick up or you can push the stick down to dynamically adjust the lift. So that would give you reverse to increase the lift. It will actually tilt back and go back. Or it will drop the lift entirely and it will catch the flooring at that point. So you can actually use it to kind of brake in a friction type manner. So just to quickly demonstrate. And it'll go off my desk. There we go, and it's stuck over in the other camera. So it's a nice product. I can demonstrate a little bit better when I have not just a desk to work with. So let's put that one over there anyway. Always remember to unplug. Okay, so here I have a final box. I don't know how well you can see this, but hopefully well enough. I'm just going to open it up. And you will find in here, you have a manual, some legal notes, which, you know, bog standard. The manual itself does actually detail out the wiring order, so be very careful of the colouring of the wire because that's particular motor directions. It shows you the layers and the order that you stick them together in. Note that the back fins require glue, so we'll go over that as well. And then the actual orientation of the propellers, and it might be hard to see in a video, but we'll go over that as well. The propellers should go into the front and into the top for rotation, and the curved side of the propeller is the side that will be going in. Okay, some useful tips on the back, worth a read. Anyway, shove that over there, see what we've got in the box. So we have one of these. I'm just going to adjust my camera up. Hopefully that looks okay. So we have a frame and a controller in a box. We have some little boxes. So that's the Whoov motors, Whoov flight controller, so it's running the BadAssDrones firmware. We do have a little USB charger. We do have a camera mount as well, if you want to add an FPV camera. And there is also a mount for a socket rather for that on the top of the flight controller, which I'll show you soon. We then have our little battery extender cable, and in the bottom of the box we have our foam all nicely wrapped. So let's move that aside. Let's open this out. So here we have the frame and the battery. So this is where we'll be cutting our ducks from. Standard battery, 300 milliamp 1S. And the controller, no batteries, but you will then need 3 AAA batteries for that. Okay, so let's open up the frame. Rustle, rustle. Whoop. Okay. So it's all pre-laser cut, so it is just a matter of popping out each of the sections. You pretty much ditch most of it. So we want this piece, and we want these pieces out the middle. We'll run through the pieces that we have remaining afterwards. You'll notice that there are some bits that you can pop out here which you don't strictly need, so we can skip those. Then we come to this one. Pop out the circles, that's where your ducks are going to go. Pop out these pieces here. This is where the fins end up connecting. Probably won't make much sense yet, but you'll see this soon. And there is a tiny center square there, which you don't want to forget, because that's where your FPV camera connector will come out. So let's put that one there with that. And then this one, easiest if you flip it over, you'll notice that this doesn't have black on this side. This is 3M sticky tape. So this is our top surface, and you'll notice that there are actually 2 cutouts here. One for long batteries, which is essentially including that piece, and one for stumpy batteries, which is taking out these side pieces as well. Now personally I take out all of it so that I can use both the standard batteries that come with it, and I've got some Tiny Whoov style stick batteries. And then this pad here, you need to be sure to take that out as well, because that's again where the FPV camera pass-through goes. So that's all good. So we carry on popping these out. Don't need the circle pieces, so they come out too. And there are some extra bits here. I actually tend to pop out either the longer one or the stumpy one, just to cut that to hold the battery in a minute. So we'll cover that as well. And then on to the last one. Separate out this one. Pop it over there. Pop the middle out. Again, this has a nice big pad on it as well. It's actually double-sided as well, so that might be useful for something. We don't need it right now, but I'm sure you guys will find something innovative for it. So we have one piece with double-sided. We have essentially a bottom piece, which, for reference, you can put it either way up. So you can have it print side down, so when you flip the craft over it, you have the print. Or you can have it black side down, and I tend to go with the black side down because it's smoother, so it's less friction. But we are also selling the Teflon covers for these as well, so ultimately it doesn't make too much difference, but I'm going to do this one black side down. So we're going to sit it up like this. Then we're going to take the piece with the diamond, unstick that from the 3M. Either side is mirrored, so it doesn't matter. And this isn't going to be the cleanest build of my life because I'm trying to rush before my GoPros die. Okay, and we're back. Lesson learned, don't say the G word around the G word cameras because they get a little bit hypersensitive and decide to just stop recording. So let's not talk about them anymore. Anyway, so we stuck down layer 1 onto layer 2 pretty shoddily. That's my good handiwork. It doesn't actually affect performance, so meh. To make life easier, you could run the cable now, but I'll do it in a minute because I'm lazy. So we're going to peel off the 3M sticky off of this side, and we're going to stick it to the underside of this one. So we're going to put that side face down. I'm going to adjust my camera a little so you can see a little better. Missed a bit at the front. Go me. There we go. I'm going to pop that on there. Now you will notice that as a result of what I've done by peeling everything off, I do end up with this sticky exposed piece. Doesn't actually affect anything, but if you're really, you know, sensitive to this kind of stuff, you might want to leave the backing cover on it, or stick something on top. You know, you can basically just bring some of the white stuff back in and stick it back on, whatever. Actually, you probably can't, but yeah, I don't care. So, love it. Flip that one over, and then we got this one to do. So we're going to peel off the 3M tape on this as well. And we're going to line those ducts up nice. So line it up with these cutouts and with the ducts. Doesn't have to be 100% bang on. It's quite a forgiving build, so don't beat yourself up too much. So that is the base of it. So then you'll basically see that we have these fins. We're not going to attach those just yet, we'll come back to them. But they go with the motors facing forwards. So you're going to want to make sure that you put it so that the design's on the outside, because that looks far nicer. But they will basically sit in those little slots, one on each side. You will need to glue these. I know they look pretty secure, but once you're cracking around the track, these will pop off really quickly if you don't secure them. Plus there's a lot of play. It's nice to get a bit of glue in those cracks. So, let's put that to one side. Let's bring the frame out. So this is where I was saying that we need some ducts. So for us, to save cost to you, the consumer, it was way cheaper to just get some tiny drone frames and cut the ducts out manually than it is to remanufacture and do all of the ducting separately. So we went with that. But we're literally just going to cut those out. So that's one cut and two cuts. Again, this doesn't have to be super clean because you really don't see it once it's done. So let's keep snipping, snip, snip, snip. One down. If you do find that you accidentally cut the duct or whatever, a blob of super glue is probably your best friend. Hot glue will do it, but it won't hold as sturdily, so let's keep going. Probably fast forward this, right? Boom. Dispose of the rest. Now we have our 4 ducts. So we're going to take the frame. We're going to take a trusty glue gun. I have a LiPo powered one, which is handy for in the field. And then we're going to wait for a while for that to heat up. Okay. So whilst we're waiting for the glue gun to heat up, let's unbox some of this other stuff and see if we can't get it ready to go. So you'll notice if you open the motor box, sorry, you'll have these little sockets. Don't need those. This little piece of foam. Don't need that. These motors do need those, and some foam. Don't need that. Add it to the don't need pile. Then we've got the flight controller box. We'll open that up. Ugh. Bit of foam. Don't need that. Off you go. And the flight controller. Definitely want that, and nothing else. Stick that lot to one side. Let's unwrap this so you can probably actually see what we're dealing with here. Again, flight controller, and in the baggie, some screws in a bag. Don't need that. I mean, by all means, you can screw it into the foam, but I'm pretty sure that's a pointless activity, so let's not bother. We have our motors, so we'll unbox those as well. And this is that. Okay, so let's one by one. Let's just take a motor, and we're going to thread the wire through the center hole and out the side. It's probably best actually if you thread it out the side with the catch on the duct, but it doesn't matter too much. Whoop. And push it in. It's a nice tight friction grip. Okay. I've just lost battery on my wide one, so this is going great. So we have one. We're going to do the same for the others. Tell you what, I'm going to cut back to when that one's done, otherwise I'm going to lose all of my cameras. So we have our frame, we have our ducts. Now you want to make sure that you double check the colouring on the manual. So in the manual I've actually put it up this way, so I'm going to put it up this way so I don't make the same mistake too. So red and blue goes in this top corner. I'm just going to slot it in there for a second, we'll come back and glue it. It's probably easier if you're doing one by one, but I'm kind of rushing, so. And I'm just going to put these on the desk in the right orientation. So red, blue, black, white, black, white. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to just lift these up one by one. Put a blob of glue in each spot. You have to excuse that my glue is a little bit brown because I keep leaving it on. Don't do that at home, kids, it's not good. So I'm only putting a little bit in. You can put all the way around the rim, you can basically do whatever you like, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to pull it out with my finger, make it look a bit cleaner, because I've done a really terrible job of that. And again, blob of glue there, blob of glue there. And you can put a bit around the rim or whatever you fancy, doesn't matter. If you're feeling really fancy, you can line all these ducts up, but I haven't on this build, I usually do. I'm a bit more OCD. Again, clean out with my finger. I don't recommend doing that unless you like having fingers burnt, but I'm pretty used to it by now. Okay, so the back ones, if I disconnect that one. So we need a black and white one on this back corner. So what I'm going to do here, get up nice and close so hopefully you can see, is I'm going to put glue particularly at the front, and particularly at the front here. And then I'm going to make sure that the black plastic section lines up, and I'm going to run the motor wires on the inside. I'm going to push that through. And then pin it down. Just hold it for a few seconds until it sets. So then that should actually push the glue pretty much right the way down. If you need to add a bit more glue, by all means do. Doesn't really matter. I was a little bit light on it for these ones, I think. So I'm just going to do the same on this side, and then we'll glue these fins in and run the cable. That's one. That's two. And again, wire on the inside. Maybe not in the glue, would be pretty handy. And slide it in. And push. Very not straight. There we go. Nice thing about hot glue is it's very forgiving. The glue guns are cheap and the glue's cheap too. Your local hobby store or some supermarkets and stuff will hold those if you don't have one. Okay. All good so far. So let's pop that out. Let's run that cable in. I'm just going to hold it on the underside with my fingers. I'm going to try and basically hold it so it sits in this groove. I'm going to put some glue on the inside here, and on this section, and on the back, just on the first two layers. Trying to hold the wire out the way. We're going to slot it in. Sorry, I probably keep covering the camera, it's my bad. And that is rock solid and perfectly aligned. So then we're going to do the same for this side. So let's run that wire through. Bingo, bango, bongo. A little bit glue on the walls. Hold it nice and tight. Bit of glue there. And two layers. Slot it in. Push it down. Hold it on. And that's that. So now we have all of our wires on the underside. Just pull them out of the way, pull them through so they're nice and taut. We'll take up the slack on the bottom so it looks cleaner. We take our flight controller, we plug in our power connector, and it's worth noting, I think, that on these boards you may notice B+ and B-, and that the colours are wrong and that my camera's slipping. The colours are actually back to front, but they're back to front on both ends, so it's perfectly fine. It's fine. It's a pre-production error, so forgive us. So we're just going to slot that cable through the hole on the back, and I'm just going to put a blob of glue. And then apply some pressure to just bend that power cable. What you want to basically make sure is that the foam stands proud of that cable. So tension is fine, it doesn't care. And that's that. So that's in place. The motors are easy to plug in. You basically make sure that you wire them up in the representing corner of each motor. So that motor goes to this one, this motor goes to this one. Keep shoving them on. If you have small hands, this is much easier. Okay. Now I've noticed that some people, I mean, you can stick it to this double-sided piece that I've got here, if you fancy. Or what I tend to do is pull the front two down to the front and put a blob of glue here. Hold them and maybe glue those over there, or you can just peel up the side. Oh, sorry, I'm drifting off camera. You can peel up this side here and even just tuck it under there. That works too. Basically, as long as your cables are out the way of the flooring, because you don't want to wear them down or catch them on anything, then you're all good. This little antenna doesn't really matter where it sits. I tend to lift this up and poke it underneath so it runs directly across, but again, doesn't matter too much. So that is basically all wired up. So at this point, if I flip it over and just point out, you'll see through this hole, I don't know how good you can see it on my camera, is the connector for the FPV camera. So we'll release the wiring diagram for that so you know which pin is which, and we'll tell you what kind of connector to buy and that kind of stuff. But your battery sits in the top there. So you've got your stumpy battery holder, and you might notice it's a little bit loose. So what I tend to do is just take a spare piece, cut the backing on each side. If I try and do it with these, I don't know, I haven't got a knife with me at the second, so like that. See if that's good enough. Oh yeah, not too bad. Like that. And then just patch that across, and it acts as a real nice brace. So you can still get your battery in and out. It's just nice and friction held. So recommend doing something like that. And the wiring I'll leave up to you to decide how you best want to route it, but however you feel. It's worth pointing out as well that if you're not going to run an FPV camera on the front, or at all even, it's worth adding a little bit of weight to the nose, because then you can run higher lift settings without it wanting a backflip, which is kind of handy. And propellers, of course, which I forgot to show at the start. So, you'll see that they have this kind of curved side on the top. That's the direction which it's going to want to spin. And it's going to want to spin into the top, and it's going to want to spin into the front. So we're going to put this one here. It's a real tight fit, so just put your finger on the back of the motor and thumb on the top and just push until it's nice and secure. Secure is good. You don't want the ones that ping off. So you'll notice this one, curved side, is facing the other direction. So this is a clockwise propeller. That one's on. Move that out of the way as well. So this one, so counterclockwise, which goes on the opposite side to the other one. And another clockwise. So clockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise. And slip that one. Beautiful. And that, as they say, is that. One pretty much finished Whoov, apart from, you know, the messy cabling. But that's easy to fix. So, let's grab a controller, plug it in, make sure it doesn't go bang. So you'll see the lights underneath flashing. That's because, yeah, there we go. So now they're fast flashing, which means it's ready to bind. So we're going to turn on the controller, wait for a solid red light. Both are solid now, and it won. Bingo. And that's that. Enjoy your woos, people!